Hi there, my name is Ben Worthington. In this video we're going to look at the structure and some of the tips you need to successfully describe an IELTS Academic Task 1 table of figures. Let's go into the details. So first of all, we're going to start by summarizing the information, and we're going to use 4 paragraphs. Okay? Introduction, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and then a summary, not a conclusion. I'll go into that into more detail later on. So we've got the 2 body paragraphs, and we're going to focus on these first because this is where we're going to pick up the lion's share of the points. Now, before we even start writing, what we're going to do is try and choose and identify the main features or the main information that we're going to include. Now, one tip for doing this is to group the information in the table. Okay, how can we group it? Well, we could use age, we could use time, we could use the countries. Okay, and from personal experience tutoring students, I found that this is probably the most difficult part of the whole task, is choosing the data. Okay, so the best advice I can give you here is, of course, practice and try choosing like the largest, the smallest, the countries, like we said before, and practice. And this is an exam skill. It's not actually a skill related to the English language. It's an exam skill you need to get good at. Okay. Second way to get good at it is to get feedback, is to start getting your essays corrected from professionals, from native speakers ideally. Okay, get some feedback and find where you're going wrong, find if you are choosing the correct information, and then you can improve from there. If you go to IELTSPodcast.com, you can find a correction service there. At the moment there's an ex-IELTS examiner doing the corrections, and sometimes it's myself, but either way you're going to get a high quality, valuable correction back in your hands, usually within about 24 hours. Okay, fast improvement. Okay, right then, let's carry on. So we're talking about choosing the information, choosing the data. Okay, so first of all we choose and we select the correct data, and we sort of like make a few bullet points, a few notes, that's all. Okay, and then when we get into writing the actual essay, we've got 1 sentence, 2 sentences for the introduction. Then we're going to do the body paragraphs, and for the body paragraphs we're going to take all the information that we took, that we identified at the planning stage, and put it in our 2 paragraphs. And then for the summary, well, we're going to use 1 or 2 sentences. Okay, now then, first of all, let's go into the introduction, because this is really easy, and with this tip I'm going to tell you, you're going to save a lot of time. Now, what I teach my students to do is look at the graph, okay, and if you see that, I don't know, for example, imagine we're talking about a table of figures showing immigration or bird migration numbers, okay, for I don't know, 3 counties in the UK, Yorkshire, Lancashire and Derbyshire. Okay, and if we can see that on this table of figures that the numbers are showing that the figures are showing that the number of birds in the UK in these counties is falling, or has fallen over a 100-year period. Okay, the common thing to do is to just say the table of figures shows that the number of birds in the UK counties has fallen over a 100-year period starting from 1901 to 2001. Okay, that's not bad. Okay, the introduction is not bad. However, I would avoid stating like the overall idea of the graph, and I'd avoid it for a number of reasons. Firstly, because you're probably going to say that information again, either in the body paragraphs or in the summary. And because you're going to have to use it again, you're going to have to look for a different structure and then avoid the repetition, show the examiner you've got all these different grammatical structures, and it's repetition, so we're kind of making life difficult for ourselves. What I would recommend doing is that you just look at the graph, okay, and you say the table of figures show bird migration numbers for 3 UK counties over a 100-year period, or from 1901 to 2001. Okay, doing it this way, you're going to avoid just stating immediately what the graph shows, and you can use it in your summary or you can use it in your body paragraph, and it's very simple to do. Okay, and you're going to get the introduction out of the way so you can just focus on the body paragraphs where you pick up the bird's points, the lion's share of the points, as we said before. Okay, so if I'll give you another example. If we've got a table of figures that show exports for, I don't know, 3 Asian countries, and we'll show that their exports are basically exploding, that they're just increasing dramatically year after year after year after year, okay, then what we would say is the table of figures shows the exports of 3 Asian countries between 1970 and 2010. Okay, and we wouldn't talk whether they were exploding, whether they all descended apart from one Asian country. We wouldn't talk about the actual message behind the graph. We'll just talk what the graph is illustrating, not the process or not the result or not the description, but just what it illustrates. Okay, and we get one sentence out of the way and done. Then after that we'll focus on the body paragraphs. For the body paragraphs, what we're going to do is write about the groups of information that we identified before. And we're not only going to write about the groups, we're going to write about the exceptions, okay, any exceptions to the data. For example, going back to the migration of birds, we could say all counties showed a gradual fall in the number of birds visiting over the 100-year period, except Derbyshire, which saw a remarkable increase, blah blah blah. Okay, so this is part of the information we're going to include in the body paragraphs. The next thing I wanted to say was to avoid going to every single figure and to go and avoid using the figures constantly. What we can say was almost around 300,000, okay, or nearly touched 250,000, okay, or was just under 400,000, okay, and we can use these different ways of describing these different descriptions to avoid saying all the figures. Okay, in the blog post there's going to be a list of these because they're quite handy. It's an easy way to improve your essays. Now that we've finished our body paragraphs, either one big body paragraph or more recommendable body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3, or 2 body paragraphs, then we're going to the summary. Now a common mistake here is to write to conclude, bam bam bam, because this is what we do in task 2. However, in your IELTS Academic task 1, it's not a conclusion, because a conclusion is like the final point where you reach after considering an argument. Okay, and this we haven't considered any argument because it was 100% objective. It shouldn't be anything subjective in there. There shouldn't be anything subjective in there. So we can't really say it's a conclusion. What we can say is to summarize. Okay, to summarize, the data showed that in all 3 counties there was a dramatic fall in the number of birds migrating, except in Derbyshire, where the number continued to rise over the 100-year period. Okay, And we either say to summarize, or we can say overall, the table of figures show, bam, bam, bam. Okay? And can you see that by not using the information that first jumped out at us, which we were going to use in the introduction, by not using it in the introduction, we can save it for the summary, and we can finish on a very coherent note and make the examiner smile and cry with joy. No, I'm just joking. But it will make your essay a little bit better, and it will make life easier for you as well. Okay, now if you want more tips, I'd recommend that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and of course you come over to my website, have a cup of tea, subscribe to the email list, and send me a question if you've got any problems. Okay, good luck as well if you've got your exam coming up soon. All the best. Hello there, my name is Ben Worthington. In this video I'm going to give you tips, structure, strategy to follow to make how to describe